Yeah, you're good.
Do you own your home in Missouri, but still rent your electricity?
Must be Siri at work again. Heard you forget I mentioned it. Not working?
For some reason.
You were on there a minute ago, Nanny.
Yeah, I know, went away.
Went away?
Yeah. Let me try it again.
You do me. Oh, do you? I have to do something.
Plus I can't.
Got it now.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
You are? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. I'm brushing my water in that tub. Yeah. Oh, well, that's good enough.
I don't know how long it's gonna run.
Brushing my water in that tub. Yeah. Oh, well, that's good enough.
I don't know how long it's gonna run.
Brushing my water in that tub. Yeah. Oh, well, that's good enough.
I don't know how long it's gonna run.
This is the other. Oh my gosh, that was brilliant. All the backsides are blank. Oh my gosh, that was brilliant. It's got right on it. It's good. All the backsides are blank. Oh my gosh, that was brilliant. It's got right on it. It's good. All the backsides are blank. It's got right on it. It's good. Or two different ones. Or two different ones.
Yeah, I figured out what it was. It's graduation pictures, isn't it? Well,
I think there's a different story behind it.
I figured it was graduation pictures, isn't it?
I think Olathe's grooming code
Yeah,
might
it's
be
a
a
little
little bit
different.
stricter than ours. Yeah, I we're think
there's
pretty
a
lax
different
around
story.
here.
Obviously.
So we need to have
I
higher
think
standards.
Olathe's grooming
Or
code
lower,
might be a little
whichever.
stricter than ours.
Set ourselves apart. in some
Yeah,
ways.
we're pretty lax around here.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be great.
Obviously.
So we need to
How'd that happen? Where did that come from?
Or lower, whichever.
Ah, there we go. Okay, got it figured out.
You say something? Oh, no.
I just thought it was unusual chatter till I heard my own voice.
I'm okay, ain't
Yeah, you're good. Yep. Because we'd be echoing. You're good.
Edit that out of the recording.
Indeed.
I'm having a little trouble getting.
I am gonna start the.
Oh, no.
Well, the YouTube's been going, but I'm gonna start this recording here.
This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. Now that Jay's here,
I got
a full
a
house.
staff here. Yeah.
We're down to item M on new business. They all have. I'm not. It's been a long time since I did it all myself, if ever. He's Mike. Mike's pretty hot.
Yep, mine's on, but I'll say.
Be nice over there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sounds like it's turn my settings off.
No, it don't make any noise. I might shut off all my things. Oh, yeah. You'd know it by now. I would like to call the May 18th DeSoto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Hunter Michael,
Yes, here.
Daniels,
Here.
Murdoch,
Here.
Lane,
He's here.
Lane, Ritter. Sorry, all are present.
All right. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brad.
All right. First item tonight on our agenda is a public hearing to consider vacating public right-of-way in the vicinity of 8180 Shawnee Street, specifically right-of-way previously reserved for Shawnee Street, but no longer needed.
Yes, council, by statute, thank you, Rob. Anytime we vacate right-of-way, meaning we turn the property back to the tax rolls, back to the adjoining properties, it's required that we have a public hearing. This vacation has to do with the redevelopment of the old street shop site. So the right-of-way or the portion of the right-of-way we're vacating was previously reserved for Shawnee Street. With the redevelopment, that's no longer needed. So there's an ordinance that's on the agenda later, but would just ask that the public, anybody that wants to speak on this, be allowed to. And Brad, I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
I think it's pretty clear.
We've already rezoned the property, so it's just.
All right, I think with that introduction, I will officially open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this, please come forward and state your name and address. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on the right-of-way. On to a public hearing for our 2024 CDBG project. This was as we ended up, our sirens in the Southwest Growth area. So, Brad, did you want to do any more introduction on it, or just open the public hearing?
Yeah, I can give a brief overview, Mayor. Yeah, that's just a public hearing as required by the process for the CDBG grant. We did talk about 3 projects last time: the tornado sirens, the sidewalk along Waverly, and then additional lighting along the Sunflower Road Trail, which was actually our 2023 project. So that's all there is. You just need to make a decision after you hold the public hearing.
Okay. With that introduction, I will officially open the public hearing for the CDBG project. Anyone wishing to speak to the CDBG project, please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Move on to the next item in the agenda, which is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of minutes from May 4th and approval of pay ordinance number 949. Anything anyone would wish to pull from the consent agenda or a motion to approve? I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Next item is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. Minute time limit. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to public? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 3A, consider 2024 CDBG projects. Go ahead.
Have anything to add, Mayor? It's just after the public hearing, just need direction on which project the council wishes to have selected for submittal for the 2024 CDBG.
And so based on my recollection, we had all kind of gravitated toward the warning siren projects. Is that aligned with what everyone else recalled?
Yes.
So I guess I would ask, do you need a motion that we would?
Yeah, we do need a motion to.
So somebody ready to make a motion, we would proceed with the warning siren project. Is there a motion in the report?
No, it's just as simple as,
Yep, I'll make a motion. We use the, adding siren coverage as our CBDG grant, 2024.
All right, we have a motion and a second to use the two warning siren as addition of two warning sirens as our 2024 CDBG project. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, moving on, item 4A, receive our 2022 audit report.
Yes, council, I want to take just a moment to recognize our finance officer who's in the audience, Bonnie Bennett. This is her one appearance per year she's required to make in front of the council. Public speaking is not in her job description, so I did want to recognize her presence and thank her for all her work that she does throughout the year, keeping the finances in order, making sure that these reports that we get from our consultant are good ones, and also assisting mightily with the preparation of the budget, which is later on in the agenda. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Karen Lynn with BT and Company to present the audit. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Appreciate a few moments of your agenda this evening to discuss the results of the audit. I believe you have two documents that are the result of the audit. One is the financial statements themselves, and the second one is a report to City Council. That document has the results of the audit, and what is the document that I want to just take a few moments to go through with you. After you hire us to perform the audit, our responsibility is to perform the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. Those standards require that we plan and perform the audit in order to form an opinion about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. So we design our audit with that objective in mind. These financial statements are in accordance with the Kansas statutory basis, which is a regulatory basis of accounting. And so the opinion that we give does reference that regulatory basis. In the opinion that we attach to the financial statements, there are some bulleted points that really highlight some of the things that we do as a part of the audit process, which I think are important to highlight to you. And I want to just take a few moments to summarize what those bulleted points state. In performing an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We identify and assess the risks of material misstatement of the financial statement, whether due to fraud or error, and we design and perform our audit procedures that are responsive to those risks. We obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design our audit procedures that are appropriate in those circumstances. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies that are used and the reasonableness of any significant estimates that are made by management, as well as evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statements. And we conclude whether there are any conditions or events that would prohibit the organization or the city in this from being able to continue to operate for a reasonable period of time, which is generally considered to be 1 year. So all of those things are done as a part of our audit, as well as the work that we do in looking at the financial statement documents and the numbers that go into the financial statements themselves. If there were any issues or problems in any of those areas, we would bring those to your attention. They would be part of our report, and they would be things that we would be concluding about and would be reporting to you. We did not have any issues that came up during our audit, and that's as a result, we did have an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of opinion that can be given to a set of financials, and we are not reporting any deficiencies in internal controls, and we have no findings that we needed to report. As you look through the opinion that we've attached to the financial statements, you will see that there is a reference to an adverse opinion. And that we also talk about that in this report that I'm going through. It's considered to be a modification of an opinion, and it's called Adverse Opinion on U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. And I think it's important to point out that because the state of Kansas allows this regulatory basis of accounting, which is the format of the financial statements that are used for the city, although the state of Kansas allows it and is the kind of financial statements that you use, it is considered to be not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and so we do issue this adverse opinion in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, but it is unmodified in accordance with the regulatory basis. So it's just something that we do have to describe in the opinion, and so I do want to point that out to you. There were no audit adjustments that we made to the trial balance that was provided to us. So that is a good indication that the financials that as are reported during the year and as Bonnie puts together for you for your monthly meetings are those same financials then that are presented in the audit report. If we would have any issues or problems, any information that we requested that wasn't provided to us, for example, any disagreements about any accounting or auditing matters, we would be sure to bring those to your attention when they occurred, so that you would be aware of any issues like that. But we had nothing, again, nothing of that kind that we would need to report to you. We had great cooperation. Everything was available to us. We were able to get through the audit in an efficient manner. And so we do want to express our appreciation to Bonnie for all of the work that she went through to assist us in the audit process. And we do always like to point out that having great results of an audit like this is not just because of the time that we're here doing the audit, but because of a year-round process that is in place for the financial reporting. The last item is the letter that's in this packet that is on the city's letterhead. It is required by our audit standards to have certain things in writing, things that we discuss about the financials during the audit process, also things that are underlying the financial statements. And so it's all in writing in this letter. This letter's provided to us at the very end of the audit process. The date that it is signed becomes the date of our audit opinion that's attached to the financials, because that is the date that everyone is in agreement that the financial statements are final and they are ready to be issued. We do encourage you to read through this letter because there's a lot of good information in there that supports the financial statements, and as you read through the financials, this information can help you to digest and understand the financials and the policies and things that are underlying with that. So take a few moments to read through that, and that can help with your fiduciary responsibility towards those financial accounting matters. So with that, I would entertain any questions that anyone might have about the audit process or about the conclusions.
All right, questions from council? I don't see any. Thank you for your audit and your time this evening.
Great, thank you.
Do we need a motion to accept the audit, or?
No action needed, is that correct, Patrick? The
No, I
audit stands accepted?
I think we usually.
We do? Sorry,
vote.
my mistake.
I thought, well, that's what I thought. We
Okay.
made a motion to accept the audit.
Yeah.
Make a motion, we accept the audit.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Hattermichael.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right. Item B, discuss economic incentive application from JWB and Alco Development for townhome development on Valley Street Drive.
Yes, council, pursuant to our recent adjustments to the incentives policy, we are presenting this without recommendation from either staff or the incentives committee. Before you tonight, you have an application from JWB LLC and Alcove Development. Dustin Baker is here in the audience representing Alcove. The request relates to a 24-unit townhome duplex project that's in the 8300 block of Valley Springs Drive. It has already received rezoning and site plan approvals through the Planning Commission. So at this point in the planning process, it is ready for building permit applications. I don't believe they've been submitted at this time. The incentive request is a 50% tax abatement for a 10-year period, and the applicant is also requesting reductions in meter, tap, and building permit fees of 75%. I did include with your packet the layout, the site plan for the development so that you can see where it's going to occur, the general layout of that. We also have executed a funding agreement which provides funds for the city to pay our financial advisor to do a cost-benefit analysis. That has been received and is also included as Exhibit C to your packet. So that's there for your information. And Exhibit D, because it's so new and fresh, I've just restated our incentives policy that that actually just passed at the last council meeting. So with that, I'll stand for any questions. I think this is the first one we've done here. It's just the presentation, but I think we welcome any feedback or discussion you might have on this issue, and then we will take this to the finance team committee for further discussion and a follow-up recommendation for action at a later meeting.
All right. I think the only other piece that maybe, and I know you mentioned it, the cost-benefit analysis and the findings of the cost-benefit analysis are included in the
Yep, Exhibit
packet,
C.
which, so, open it up for council questions, comments. The applicant is here if anyone would have any questions for Dustin.
Y'all have a question for
Okay.
Dustin. You know, when a project of this, what makes you choose whether you're gonna do this and keep them and rent them versus selling these units to individuals? I don't know, it just seems to me that this market value where people could buy them might be an advantage for residents of DeSoto, and so just kind of trying to get a grasp on why there'll be rentals instead.
We've had strong demand. Dawn has the townhomes that go along 83rd Street. Those are rental townhomes. We've seen strong demand from the elderly population that wants to downsize, doesn't want to own the house, likes maintenance provided. So that's kind of the demand that we're seeing. So we're trying to that's what we're trying to fill.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rob, any comments, questions?
I was gonna say, it seems to fall in line with our incentive policy that we amended.
Okay.
I guess my question is more, I don't remember the discussion of sending it back to the finance team for further consideration and then coming back here. I know we had talked about possibly having additional time,
Yeah, I think that's
But-
true.
but being sent back to the finance team for further consideration if it already met the guidelines and then coming back was a step I don't remember ever being discussed.
Is that because we didn't meet last time? We were-
Well, in this case, we've already, the incentive team, or the finance team already discussed this
This
application
particular one?
before we adjusted the policy, though.
Yeah, but I would agree. I don't know that we really need to take this back. It's just, the pause is just to gather
Oh, shit.
time for finding facts
Yeah.
and forming a decision or opinion, right? I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Just so that it's not for action at the meeting that
Right,
it's presented.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
scratch that out.
Yeah, we can
Scratch
take
that meeting.
Out of the
I was gonna say,
process.
is there a reason that it has to be waited for, or wait for another meeting if we all are pretty much in agreement?
We just said we weren't gonna, the reason being because we said we weren't gonna do that.
I think it was important, I think from what I heard and we agreed to, that, from Danny's concern was that we slowed down just a little bit and take the time, so I think it's probably important on the first one we do on the new policy that we try.
How long has this
Follow.
application been submitted?
3/27/23.
So we're almost 2 months from submission?
That's right.
That's a slow walk. It's a very slow walk.
Yeah, when summertime's a major time to get things going.
Well, I don't think it's always that way. I think anybody who comes to the city will say that we usually step up and do this. You know, we don't do that, but we were in the middle of doing an incentive policy and we slowed down so that that policy could be formalized before we continued on with any incentive requests.
Right, and this particular application was not in conformance with the previous policy.
Right. So we could have denied it sooner,
We could have approved it too.
or either way. I mean, it could have gone either way, but
Yeah.
part of the slow walk is because we were in the middle of revising the policy.
Yeah, we were
My-
setting an example.
And it wasn't, I mean, Dustin.
It's not to
you weren't
penalize this
protesting
project or
the-
Dustin or
No,
Don.
we weren't acting on it while we were midstream, right?
No.
I mean, the sooner the better, but.
Sure.
But that, he kinda answered my question there. The question I had when we didn't talk about this was it gonna hold up developers and delay them and have costs incurred to them that we didn't know about, but he just said the quicker the better.
Agree. Yeah, I gotta believe that we're one of the most responsive communities in the metropolitan area, even if we are holding Dustin up for another meeting or any other project. I think, I reject the notion that we're slow walking someone's application because we want it, for some other reason, but, I don't agree with that statement. I think we are a community, a governing body that is responsive to requests. We act on them in the timeliest fashion that we can. And I would venture that many developers would enjoy their time working with us as opposed to some other communities in the area. But
And I wouldn't be adverse to acting on it, but for this is the
Right.
very first,
yeah, right.
very first application after we just approved our policy where we said we would not, act at the first meeting.
The one thing I would say that I don't know that we've ever done, and I don't think we've really discussed it, is 75% waiver on permit fees, tap fees, and inspection fees. I think that's probably an element that needs some discussion or vetting. I mean, if that's, we had a program in the past where we had reduced fees for building permits, during, post-recession, but well, I guess Panasonic got some of that stuff, but perhaps, but.
Yeah, I would have to kind of say that
I-
that isn't something that, right now, the council is doing.
Yeah, I think ideally our meter fees, and tap fees, are they set for us to make a profit on, or aren't they generally set
We need to have a look at them.
to be a break even?
Cost recovery.
Generally
Right, I
cost
mean,
recovery.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So is that something we need to look into then?
well, I think that's,
Separately?
but it's an element of the request, so we need to decide, you know, if we're gonna approve it as submitted or modify, that, any part of it. I mean, so there is some thought, and Danny, since it was important to you that we take more time, I guess I'll defer to you. If we act on this tonight, as our first one out of the gate on the new policy, would that, I don't know, would you take umbrage to that, the fact that we weren't
No,
responding to your concerns and the?
no, not at all. It's a reasonable request. I'm sorry. You know, I know that, you know, it was come in under the new policy. And, you know, I don't think this is on the extra, on the, meter and the, permit fees. I don't think that's out of line at all. You know, I feel that, you know, we've gave, you know, the other larger corporations, Flint and everything, we're up to 75%. And, he's come in with a reasonable request of 50. And, we could discuss that if we want to raise that.
Okay. So I think hearing that, then I think I'm comfortable, you know, if we were ready to go forward with action on the item tonight. I think the two questions then, does any, and I guess we can weigh in, the 50% 10-year abatement, does anyone have any issue or take any exception to that level of assistance or investment in this townhome project, knowing that it's, could be where I, you know, choose to locate next? You know, you could be one of those seniors looking for a maintenance provided project. But
I was gonna say, hearing Danny, the only discussion I would possibly throw out there is being the meter tap and building permit fees, aren't the normal, would it be more in line to make it 60 or 65% abatement and just not have the meter tap fees and building permit fees where it's just the abatement and sales tax across the board?
Well, if you want something like that, then I need to see all new numbers and stuff. I'm not
Okay.
gonna approve something of that sort.
Yeah, I think
I
that's a
don't see
big-
a reason to give a developer more than what they're asking for.
Well, it wouldn't be it wouldn't necessarily be giving him more than he's asking for, it'd just be moving,
But you don't know that. You don't know what those numbers are.
yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if in this report.
the financial
if I even
analysis did not consider the tap, and honestly, I don't know what the tap
I was gonna
fees
say, I
are.
don't
We
even
don't
know
even
what
know
the
what those
fees
fees
are,
are.
so it's a little hard for me to prove and I don't
That
even
fee
know
study come out,
getting.
or that fee deal was going back. I still have that document.
Yeah.
We just changed it.
Mike, do you know what the tap, or Chet, do you know what the tap fees are for, what are you are these individually metered, or is you meter and per building, or?
Individually.
Okay, so there'll be 5/8 residential meters,
They're $12.50 for residential.
$1,250?
Yeah, $1,250.
See, I mean, I think that's a pretty darn reasonable fee. I mean,
It's really reasonable.
we can't be expected to pay the developer for the privilege of putting in the meters. I don't think that that's a reasonable request on the meter fee, the meter and tap.
Dustin, is your target seniors and other folks, or is
That
it?
would be our target.
Yeah.
And by getting what you're asking for, you can keep that $1 down.
Right.
And by far the biggest impact is the tax abatement, not the
Right.
fees. I'd probably say no on the fee reduction, but I'm okay with the tax abatement fits what we were thinking.
I don't have a vote, but I would say, 100% support the 50% 10-year abatement, but, I don't even know that we have rolled our, removed all the reductions we had in our building.
Yeah, we have rolled those back. Those
have?
came off,
Okay.
but we are in the middle of reassessing the development fees specifically and the tap fees to make sure that all those costs are.
Yeah.
So we better approve this
Dustin, do
before
you
we
know what the
increase
permit fees would be for the building permit fees? What that 75% amounts to for this project? Off the top of your head, I didn't see, it's not in a dollar.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of like.
Are these like 5,000 a unit or?
I mean, roughly, I was gonna say probably 7,500 a unit,
Per unit or per structure?
per unit.
I guess we're kind of at I mean,
Does this have excise tax on the side or is this payment for that?
Excise tax on platting, did you pay that or was that already paid? It was already platted, wasn't it?
I believe when Arbor was done, it was already paid.
It was already platted.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
let's see.
Well, there's no requirement for us to come to really
Say, we
necessarily any
could-
consensus tonight. We've heard the feedback. We can bring back, after some discussion with the applicant, bring back at the next meeting some proposal and we can
I
carry
think
the
a total
discussion
of what the
forward
fees
from
would
there.
be is,
I think
seems to be
that-
one
right.
thing we're all
You're right.
wanting to hear and whether that's worth reducing or not.
We need the if it's $50,000 or if,
And then what are our hard costs?
and what our costs are to perform, right?
Yeah, because, an abatement is foregone money. A reduction in fees is we're still having to.
We still have to
incur
do the building
expenditure.
inspections, the plan review.
Yep, you gotta buy a meter.
Right, and we dig and, I believe, right, we dig and set the meter. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, that's $1,250 to dig a hole and set a meter just doesn't sound like a lot of money.
Can I approach?
Sure.
Can I talk about this?
Okay.
This request wasn't meant to like throw a wrench in things. So, what I was trying to get at is something less than 75%, to just ask for the tax abatement that we felt like we needed for the project with all the, the excess dirt on the site. We had 24,000 cubic yards of dirt we had to haul off the site that, and we're still hammering rock as we speak. So, if it comes down to the point of, I understand the city needs to cover its cost, so I wasn't looking for that. If it's an issue that you don't want to set a precedent, I can remove that request, and I think we would be fine. I'm speaking for Dawn, but I think we would be fine with 50% if that meant that you could vote on it tonight.
50% on the abatement.
50% on the abatement. Remove the building. Really, we were going for the building permit fee. Maybe I probably did write tap fee. I didn't mean to write tap fee. I meant to write just the building permit fee. So if that's the contentious issue that would prevent you from voting on it tonight, which you guys were talking about, I think we could live with that and move on. So we could get going on the project.
Thanks, Dustin. And I am a little worried about, because of the number of projects that we have potentially coming forward to us, that when we start to tap into building permit, all of those are there for a reason. They're not, they're there because we have to pay people to do these things. And to start cutting into that for one project, and everyone is gonna say that, and it will be, everybody will be asking for them. So, I would be good with going forward with the 50%, but remove the request for any reduction in any other fees.
Yeah, I would be good with the two.
Okay. We're ready for a motion. I would entertain that.
Is there a motion on here?
No,
Okay,
wing it.
yeah, because we weren't ready for one, were we? So I'll make a motion, we approve the application for the economic incentives, granting a 50% abatement over 10 years, but removing any request for reduction in tap, water, and building permit fees. Does that sound right?
I would think you need to amend that to include sales tax for,
The IRB.
yeah, the sales tax exemption on construction materials.
To include that for the IRB.
Great, just to add that on there.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Thank you. Mayor.
All right, so we have an amended motion and the second's good. Brandon, do you have that?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask just to confirm.
No, why don't you read back the motion?
What I have is a motion by Councilmember Murdoch to approve the incentive proposal for 50% tax abatement for 10 years, plus a sales tax exemption on construction materials. And did we remove the building fee, the
I
building
think
fees?
that right there captures what we're
Is
gonna
that,
offer.
is that all, that's the whole thing? Okay, so building fees are being removed from the
Motion.
motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. That's what I have.
Okay. All right, everybody clear on the motion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.
Item C, consider a proposal from AB Creative for the Miller Park Playground.
All right, good evening. What I have before you on this agenda item is replacement of some pieces of playground equipment at Miller Park. Throughout the years that I've been here, we've replaced some pieces, and the oldest section is the more northern section of that area. Through talks with local vendors and the movement more in the playground equipment industry, it's not like it used to be where you just put up swings in a jungle gym and things like that. Trying to be more inclusive with the equipment that we're putting in, and providing opportunities for all that are interested. So this equipment is geared towards 2 to 5 year olds and or those that have physical, emotional, or mental needs. Making sure to include panels such as Braille, language, and numbers, along with some other interactive, and then also some musical options with xylophone and drums. And these are on the main unit. And then also using our existing swing sets, but changing out some of the swings to be more inclusive as well, in terms of allowing those with any disabilities to be able to swing and be a part of the group. Also, a swing that a parent or adult can be on one side and the child on the other, and they're looking at each other face to face for a comfort level there as well. So we sent 4 RFPs out to area companies, and received 2 back. We set up a committee of 4 to go through the proposals, 2 staff members and 2 park board members to score those. And based on the results, the recommendation is to use AB Creative to supply the equipment and installation for this project. So, some of the other exhibits within that are AB Creative's proposal, and then also there was a link in the on the memo to the rest of the information from Cunningham. So, stand for any questions you
Okay.
may have.
Questions for Jay on the playground proposal?
Looks fun.
Okay.
I'll
Seeing
have to
none,
take
I
it.
think we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion, we accept the proposal for the Miller Park Playground Replacement Project with AB Creative in the amount of $99,265 plus a 10% contingency, and authorize the city administrator to sign the contract.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Carmichael.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Consider bids for the Miller Park parking lot project.
Okay, I am back, unfortunately for you. This project is adding an additional parking lot where the old pool used to be at the corner of 83rd and Ferry. There's been a need for this for a while. When we have baseball, softball, and t-ball games, and then also when we play soccer down at the park. We have people parking in the grass along 83rd Street, getting into the ditch. They'll go up 82nd Street to the west, park along Ferry on the east side, and it's very congested. So what we're hoping with this parking lot is we can get people in, helping with pedestrian traffic, but also getting people in hard surface parking stalls to make it easier and safer to get in and out of vehicles, and like I said, for pedestrians. This lot is set out with 2 ADA spots and 29 regular spots. We received 6 bids from area companies. Oh, I will mention on this project, as well as the one we just talked about, within the contract, we're putting in that cannot start before July 15th. We're just trying to get the baseball, softball, t-ball season over with, so we're not, construction and the playground and the parking lot all at the same time the games are going on. So I didn't mean to mention that on the previous item as well. So lowest bid was Line of Weaver Construction, $180,728. As you can see in the table at the bottom of the first sheet. And similarly to the last item, their bid documents are attached to this, and then also with the link on the first page there where the rest of the bids were included. So, stand for any questions.
Any questions on the parking lot project?
Well, I'll make a comment that it's not one of my favorite projects, to concrete in more green grass area that's in a park. And, you did bring up a lot of safety issues, which makes me feel a little bit better, because I think people are still gonna park along 83rd Street. They're still gonna park everywhere. And it just seems like we're spending a lot of money to concrete in or blacktop in, hard service in an area that probably could have parking, I would have thought anyway, if it was, just on a grass area or something. But, I can remember the day when $150,000 would have went a long way to a ball field that we never got done because, we never had any money. And now we're spending $150,000 to take some grass and put concrete in a park and cover it up, when we already did that once in this park on the other end. So it's just kind of just not a project that I feel is the strongest thing that we need to be spending money on. So, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Any other comments? I think the survey kind of, I understand where you come from, and I agree with you a lot. I think the patron survey probably took us the other way. There was a lot of support within the.
Yeah, and both of these projects, we've, with the park board, Brandon can attest to this, we've kicked this around for a year and a half, almost 2 years, all
Yeah,
these
about-
projects, and ranked and re-ranked and added and subtracted, and these were the two, well, there's three that rose to the top, the other one will maybe be coming back to you later with the restroom concession add-on and rehab project at Miller, but those were the three that they had rise to the top, so.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time deliberating. The
Oh, yeah,
park board
Rob-
spent a lot of
Rob
time
too, yeah.
deliberating and looking at options and looking at different scenarios.
Yeah. And this is, kind of ties into this, but there would probably be some opposition, but no parking along 83rd Street would be ideal for me to, once we add this, to put no parking up there on the north side of 83rd Street to keep people off the grass.
Would it be about a wash in terms of the number of people who do just pull off and park in the ditch in terms of what you're accommodating in the parking lot? Could you do that? Could you put up no parking and it be a trade-off?
It would be real similar. I don't think we get as many on 83rd
As would be
as we could
accommodated?
fit in that parking
Okay.
lot.
So you
Now,
could.
Yeah, I
now
don't think so either.
that isn't gonna cover all of 83rd, all of Ferry, and 82nd Street, I don't think, but it will get approximately 3/4 of them. On a game night where we're playing A, B, and
Quite a few people down there.
yeah, on soccer, yeah, that's an example. But even on baseball nights with A, B, and C fields all being used. And I know why people do it. It's when we play soccer towards the south end of the park,
It's convenient.
I can get right out of my car and walk 2 feet and I'm there versus, but I think if we can provide them a hard surface that, I think it would be better for everybody safety wise too.
Okay. Any other comments? Someone ready to make a motion?
I move to accept the low bid for the Miller Park parking lot project with Lena Weaver Construction in the amount of $180,728 plus a 10% contingency and authorize the city administrator to sign the contract.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Monaco,
Yes.
Daniels, Murdoch,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item E,
That's what everybody else wants.
consider ordinance number 2576, adopting planning commission's recommendation for text amendment cul-de-sac size, street tree buffering, and corner lot definition.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. This is a little bit of a hodgepodge of requests. Now, one thing also I did need to point out that Patrick told me about later after the planning commission had taken action is the cul-de-sac is actually part of the city code and not under the planning commission's authority. So that's why you've got an additional item on the agenda to take care of the cul-de-sac size. I will go ahead and cover that during the staff report. But for this discussion and motions, which I do have some suggested motions in the staff report, we'll just be covering the corner lot layouts and the street tree issues and buffering. First of all, the reason this came up with the corner lots really is because the properties across the street, there was a request for an accessory building, and our code really wasn't clear on what was the front yard. If you're on the corner lot, you will have two fronts on the corner, and you will also have a rear and a backyard. Well, the way our code or language in our code was written is you could make a case for either one being the back or the rear, and so the applicant was, sort of taking the other side. We had kind of, as staff had met and decided this is the way we should go on this, and they're claiming, well, I actually don't have a backyard, I've got two rear yards, so I can use the much smaller side yard setback. So we needed to clarify that, and I did do some research and look primarily at Olathe, Shawnee, and Lenexa. And this is very similar to utilizing the narrowest part of the lot is the front or the primary front, which we would then use to determine the backyard for an accessory building. And most of the time this happens in the older part of DeSoto, in the original platted area where we do have some lots that are sort of misshapen that are on the corners where the address or maybe in the front yard is on the wide part, but the narrow side is where the driveway is. But under this language, we would limit that to the narrowest part of the corner lot would be the primary front to help determine the backyard. So it really doesn't have anything to do with where the front door is or where the address sign is. It has to do with determining what's the rear yard. And so then we can move forward much more clearly with the recommendation to an applicant who wants to do something with an accessory building. So that's the corner lot issue. There is a little diagram that's Exhibit A. It's included in your packet as well. For the cul-de-sacs, which is, again, is something that you'll take up later, Chad had asked about why we have such large cul-de-sacs in DeSoto. And upon research, we use the American Public Works Association for our specifications and standards. And what you have in your exhibit is showing what is recommended in the APWA for Kansas City. And DeSoto had a 60-foot radius and 50 foot from back of curb. So we felt like it was appropriate to reduce the size of that. Did talk to Chief Maxton about it. He was pretty much neutral on the issue. He just wants to be able to get his vehicles in and make sure that his more concern was vehicles parked on the road. And I don't know that actually, this is my personal opinion, having a bigger cul-de-sac will probably get more vehicles parked in that cul-de-sac area versus less. And so, and also Commissioner Milner, Planning Commissioner Milner, actually put together these radiuses for us so you can see the difference in the size and how the vehicles still can turn and operate within the smaller cul-de-sac size. It also is a little bit less for us to maintain, take care of, plow snow, repair pavements. So over time, it could make a difference in how much pervious area that we have, or impervious area that we have to deal with as far as street crews. And then finally, the adjacent street buffer, something that most Johnson County communities, once again, Lenexa, Shawnee, Olathe have is a 40-foot tree frontage. Actually, Cameron has been enforcing the 40-foot tree frontage, even though our code actually says 75 feet. So we haven't missed anything. It's just that somebody pointed it out that, hey, I don't need to put in trees quite as often as you say we do. And it's like, whoops, yeah, there's something we need to fix. And then also we added, the Planning Commission pointed out some of our language in the areas along K10. We don't really have frontage roads along K10, so they wanted just the areas abutting the K10 right away to have the 40 additional plant units per 100 feet of footage. So with that, that is a staff report on this item. And I do have some suggested motions, and as I said, we will take up the cul-de-sac ordinance on a later item on the agenda.
Okay, questions from council? Are we ready for a motion?
Just one thing, Mayor, I also wanted to point out, we do have that statement in the language as if in dispute, the front, rear, and side yard will be specified by the community development director. There are a few places in DeSoto where we have the house is on the corner, but it is actually diagonally on the lot. So that's why we've got that the community development director can make that decision, determining what is the front, side, and the rear lots. And we also do have a administrative review policy. If somebody wanted to challenge that, they could take that to the BZA to overturn any kind of direction the community development director may have given in regard to corner lot definition.
So this would be ordinance 2576 on the corner lot definition and street tree buffering.
Okay. We ready to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2576?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we adopt ordinance 2576 to amend the zoning regulations pertaining to corner lot definitions for street tree buffering.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huntermeyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
And the mayor votes on that.
Oh, yeah, Mayor Walker, I
Yes,
apologize.
sorry.
Motion carries.
Item F, consider ordinance 2577 vacating excess right-of-way near 8180 Shawnee Street. The item of the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2577, vacating public right-of-way at 8180 Shawnee Street.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huntermeyer.
Yes.
Mayor?
Mayor Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Okay, item G. Consider ordinance 2578 adopting planning commission's recommendation to rezone 22 acres of land on 95th Street west of Lexington Avenue from M2 Industrial Heavy District to C2 Business General District.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. What you have before you are actually three items that are very similar in nature. I'll go in more detail on the first one and then just point out the differences in the staff report as we look at the other two potential rezonings before you tonight. First of all, this is the northern part of the 22 acres of 76-acre tract on 95th Street. It's actually kind of mid-block and it is not addressed, so that's why I use the tax ID in the description and the summary. The proof of ownership of indicating that Watkins and Partners is the contract buyer. The applicant, Rick Watkins, is in the audience tonight, so if you have any questions for him, he is available for that. As you can see, the proposal is to rezone an M2 tract, heavy industrial, and this actually came in to the city. We used to have a policy where we allowed the person being annexed to choose their zoning district, and this person elected to go with M2. And we no longer allow this practice. It carries the county zoning into the city, and then it needs to be rezoned to an appropriate City of DeSoto category. So that's how this M2 tract got located in this area along Lexington Avenue and 95th Street. We did have a public hearing on this item. There were several residents that spoke about the proposed rezoning, and actually all three rezonings. So the minutes are in your staff report. As far as going through the criteria that we go through to evaluate the compatibility zoning factors, certainly look at the area around this property. It is mostly rural residential. The abandoned water treatment facility from the Sunflower Tract is to the west. That area that's in the northeast corner, 95th and Sunflower, is our water tower. And so you can see with the existing zoning map, there are quite a few different types of zoning categories around this area, even though the land use itself is a lot of open space, agriculture, and also rural residential. And we do believe that the proposed zoning is much more in line with this transition, what we call the southwest growth area, to multifamily and commercial in DeSoto. And this is also reflective in the future land use plan, which does indicate R3 and mixed use north of 95th Street. So it's very, very similar in many ways to what the land use future land use plan is proposed. Length of time this property's remained vacant is zoned, no viable heavy industrial development that has been proposed in the last 5 years, and have never had even remotely any discussions entertaining anything near that. The extent to which there's a need in the community, we've kind of targeted this area, as I mentioned, it's called the Southwest Growth Area. We spent a lot of time looking at this location with the Housing Committee and trying to come up with a much more detailed and applicable future land use plan. And as I said, it does meet much of the criteria that the future land use plan does show. Subject property will be served by Water 7 for potable water. We are working on the project to get sanitary sewer access along 95th Street, and electricity is already on site. Evergy is actually building a fairly significant transmission main along the north side of 95th Street. So there was a lot of concern from the general public about what's the status of that during the Planning Commission meeting. Also, one of the items that is a very difficult issue that we've been struggling with as city staff, and is what to do with 95th Street. It is a rural county road. It's chip sealed, it's paved, but it's certainly not able to handle the type of traffic that could be generated from a commercial development in this location. This will be a fairly similar theme that you'll be hearing throughout all these rezonings. Parking would be on site, and site plan would be needed for approval to move forward with development of this site. As far as environmental impacts, we do believe that the change from M2 will more likely decrease the potential for any environmental harm in the area. We also believe that it is considered a downzoning from M2, which is our most intense use that we have within the city of DeSoto. I also think that the extent for the neighbors would actually benefit from removing the M2 in this area and changing it to C2 would not decrease property values. And we do believe also that any construction or development that increases the value of the property is an economic benefit in terms of tax revenue to the city as well. I don't see any particular reason why there would be a gain to the residents in the area to deny this rezoning request. As I've stated, and we'll state on the next one, is that it's M2. It's something that our future land use plan does not consider, and our housing committee never gave it any kind of thought that we would like to have this type of zoning continue in this area. As far as staff recommendation, we do recommended to the Planning Commission that the approval of the rezoning request. The Planning Commission did concur with that and has recommended approval of the change from M2 to C2, and that is ordinance 2578. It concludes my staff report. I'll certainly stand for any questions that you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Questions for Brad on this rezoning application? Not seeing any. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve ordinance 2578, rezoning property, the 22 acres located along 95th Street between Sunflower Road and Lexington Avenue from M2 Industrial Heavy District to C2 Business General District.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Michael,
Yes.
Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item H, consider ordinance 2579 adopting Planning Commission's recommendation to rezone 54 acres of land on 95th Street west of Lexington Avenue from M2 Industrial Heavy District to R3 Multifamily Dwelling District.
All right, thank you, Mayor. What you have before you is the southern portion of this tract, from M2 to R3 multifamily. It's almost an identical staff report with many similar questions and concerns that were raised by the residents. Utilities will be served by the same providers. We're working on the sewer. One of the differences here is that we'll have access to Lexington Avenue, so there'll be potentially a access point on 95th Street and also Lexington Avenue for this location, which we believe is a benefit to this tract. Certainly be a lot of potential uses as far as, did talk to the developer, they're looking at multifamily apartments, duplexes, and maybe even perhaps some single-family residential in this area. So that's why the request is for R3. We have seen a preliminary layout, but no formal application has been made for a site plan or any development plans, just some light sketches that did give us an indication of what the developer was thinking on this property. Again, the applicant is Rick Watkins, who is in the audience tonight. We still have concerns about 95th Street and how that road's going to be upgraded and paid for and brought up to a standard where we feel comfortable that we could have this type of an intensive use in this area. But overall, we do believe that the removal of the southern portion of the M2 zoning would be a benefit to this area and certainly is something that staff recommends, and the Planning Commission concurred with that recommendation. So with that, I will stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions from council on this application? I'm not seeing any.
I'll make a motion then to approve ordinance 2579, rezoning the southern 54 acres of the 76-acre tract of land along 95th Street between Sunflower Road and Lexington Avenue from M2 Industrial Heavy District to R3 Multifamily Dwelling District.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. Item J, no, I, sorry.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Once again, this is a very similar discussion item. It is actually north and east of the tracts that we just spoke of. It is currently zoned C2, which also was brought in under the policy where the person that was being annexed could choose their zoning district, so that's why it is commercial right now. The applicant, again, is Rick Watkins, who is in the audience tonight, is choosing to, or requesting that the northern part of the tract be rezoned to multifamily R3, and then being sort of consistent with what wanted to do with the M2 tract is keeping the frontage along 95th Street commercial, but it's already zoned commercial, so that's why we're only talking about the northern portion of this tract. Approximately 4 acres of this tract will remain commercial. The applications and all fees have been paid. They do meet our criteria. We did publish information notifying residents of the public hearing for the Planning Commission. The minutes are included in your staff report. This is also considered a downzoning, even from commercial to R3. We typically go M2 to M1, then to the commercial districts, and then R3 is considered a step below the commercial district as far as downzoning is concerned. Very similarly, we feel like it is a appropriate change to our zoning map and adopting this request. The Planning Commission did concur with this. No commercial development has been proposed in these areas, but once again, we did have a meeting with the developer, Mr. Watkins, who did show us some layouts and plans. Once again, no formal application has been submitted, but we do have a pretty good idea of what the developer is considering for this area. Certainly, it does meet the criteria for our future land use plan. We do show mixed use. Actually, north of 95th Street and south is R3. And we do have in the future land use plan, that's sort of corner of 95th and Lexington is also commercial. So these are the types of things that our housing committee and planning commission had talked about, and do feel like the rezoning request is appropriate. Don't believe that would impact the property owners in any way. In fact, in many ways, it could increase their property. So with that, I will stand for any questions you may have, but the planning commission did recommend that the city council
Okay.
approve this rezoning application.
Questions from council on the rezoning application?
So did you say the remaining C2 was about 4 acres?
Approximately, yes.
What depth is that?
Actually, when we did talk about that at the planning commission, I think it's around 200 feet. So, and I know that the Evergy transmission line is taking it another approximately 75 feet. Is that about right, Chet? So it will limit some of that area's availability for commercial development. But as I believe Mr. Watkins explained, if he needs more property for a commercial development, he'll probably have to come back for another rezoning to potentially bump that line back if
To
needed.
rezone some of the R3 back to C2?
Correct.
Any other questions?
Is it clear by the ordinance how that portion that's being rezoned is defined relative to the part that's remaining? Because it doesn't like tie in a legal description or anything like that on this one. It's just got the exhibit, but the exhibit isn't part of the ordinance.
Yeah,
How do you keep track of that?
Okay, well, we do have a legal description. I don't know if Patrick, if we got that in there.
Is that for the,
That is just for the legal description for the rezoning, so it's not for,
okay, just for the rezoned portion,
yes.
the south track being the part that's gonna remain? Okay.
Right, and so I guess that's, and as Patrick's explained to me, that's for our use. This doesn't get recorded with the county, actually, I
It's
mean,
just so we can keep track later when you're looking at a site plan of, is it within the bounds of what was
correct.
rezoned? And then, yeah, it's fine. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2580 and rezoning a 20-acre tract of land at 35000 West 95th Street from C2 Business General District R3 Multifamily.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item J, consider agreement with Blue Water for engineering services related to well field maintenance. Chet, is this you?
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. We received bids today to clean the raw water lines near the well field. That's just done periodically to remove sediment that builds up. We received those bids, and that will be an item coming back to you for your consideration. But this will be for the engineering services related section and as-built services from Blue Water. Stand for any questions?
Blue Water they're the company that did our last.
Correct.
They're the designer
Designer
for
that did the
yeah.
last
Yep.
project, major
Yeah,
cleaning
when we
project
did the whole thing.
Right. Questions from council? The motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve well-filled engineer services with Blue Water Solutions Group, Inc. in the maximum not to exceed amount of $17,088.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, item K, consider agreement with Garney Construction for pre-construction services related to the construction of the water treatment plant.
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, this, we spoke about this last week, that Garney brought to the city extremely innovative design, which reduced the time for construction by 1 year, and we'll end up with a new plant at the water treatment plant with a 50-year design life rather than rehabbing the existing 20-year design life. This is the first stage of the CMAR process, call it the pre-construction phase, so it's getting the plans progressed to the point of guaranteed maximum price. So Garney has been good enough to work at risk with us. We've had 2 meetings with them, one today, and further define the project. Because of the long lead times on some of the items, we're actually going to have 3 guaranteed maximum prices on this project. The first one will be brought to the council mid to late August. The second guaranteed maximum price will be the end of October, and the final one will be early to mid-February, with construction will start this upcoming January. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay. Questions, council?
I'll make a motion. We move to approve pre-construction services with Garney Construction in the maximum amount not to exceed amount of $336,015 with a CMAR fee percentage of 6%.
And I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item L, consider ordinance 2581, amending city code regulations on cul-de-sacs. So this was already explained to us. Are we in agreement to reduce the size of our cul-de-sacs? I brought this up 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
And I said, this is crazy. These are the biggest dang cul-de-sacs in the world.
They're giant.
And they said,
Your old city engineer was more hard on this item than your new one.
I'll make a
Mayor
motion,
does
we
not.
approve ordinance 2581, amending section 13-213 of Article 2 of Chapter 13 of the City Code related to the construction of new cul-de-sacs within the city.
And I will second.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
The mayor doesn't vote on this,
No.
Patrick, right? Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, item M, discuss 2024 budget.
Council, how do we feel about an hour-and-a-half long budget? No hour-and-a-half long budget presentation? I do want to keep it brief, given the length of the agenda tonight and the lateness of the hour, but, and I'll preface this with the understanding that this is a draft framework skeleton of the 2024 budget. Our budget calendar actually doesn't call for me to present the actual draft until the next meeting. So we're a little bit ahead of a schedule in that sense, but we do have several important data points to share with you, and you know, just some general parameters that as we craft that budget want to make you aware of, and offer any feedback that you might give to us as we continue to refine this in terms of the expenditures and revenues with the department heads in the next several weeks and months. So as you know, starting a couple years ago, our deadline moved from August back about 6 weeks, to certainly till the end of September. So we have a little more time than we used to, which is welcome. There's a few more steps involved though. So take this as a draft suggestion to kind of form the starting point for our further discussion. A lot like we said last year during budget time, we're in unquestionably a transitional period when it comes to many things that the city does and is involved with because of the economic development that we have going on. And this year is no different. We have a lot of unknowns that we simply will not be able to know even by the end of our budget period. Less certainty now than we've ever had before in terms of our demands on public services and in revenues. But I would say that our conservative practice of estimating revenues extremely conservative in the past, and that's served us well. I think this time we're going to have to be a little bit less conservative, specifically with projections for franchise revenues that we'll talk about here in a minute, because it's clear at this point that the demands on staffing resources and professional services and needs that the city has to implement and be successful on these economic development endeavors are preceding some of the revenues that we will be getting in, and really necessitate a little bit more aggressive approach to some of the revenues. Still, I think very conservative in nature. And as we look toward the 5-year projections, we still, as we did last year, at budget time, we knew Panasonic had announced, and we knew it was coming, and we knew it was transformation. But we didn't really make a good effort to project these, these 5-year, these revenue streams that are more aspirational, or the service growth that we know are coming. We've really kind of maintained a status quo posture in terms of, specifically in terms of the revenues, and that's still the case with a few exceptions that I want to bring to your attention. So, the first thing, Exhibit A to the is the budget timeline, so you can peruse that. I won't go over that in the interest of brevity. As we do each year, the 5-year projections are provided. So is that Exhibit? Yeah, it's Exhibit B to the staff report. So you've seen these spreadsheets before. They project the last couple of years, and then the budget year, and then 5 years. And the way we project those out years largely relates to these percentage adjustments that we have. I've shown here on the second page of the staff report. Largely, if you look through these in terms of the revenues, they're largely inflationary increases. So you see items of 2 to 3% to 4%, a quarter percent. Some are 5% in there. Same thing with appropriations. They're largely inflationary, and we know we're in a pretty aggressive inflationary environment right now. So the 24 levels, the budget for next year, we're setting those actual amounts. So those are all ones because I've actually input those manually into the columns. But for 25 and after, so you can see, and we'll talk about the franchise fees are really a very big and important part. You see these franchise fees increasing by 25% in 2025 and 30% in 26 and another 10% before they kind of level off. That's a direct result of what we expect to see from Panasonic. But that's a fraction of the actual possible franchise revenues from that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Generally, for the general, so tonight I'm presenting the general fund, the law enforcement, debt service, and the water and sewer funds. So those 5 funds. We have about a dozen others that are smaller in nature, less impactful in nature. Well, the capital improvement one being the biggest one. That's another kind of encompassing discussion that we're going to leave for another time that doesn't affect necessarily either one of the ones we're talking about tonight. We also have the maintenance funds, the capital or the system replacement funds, those sorts of other funds that are a lot more simple to kind of. Those will be left for another time as well. But most of the work, and Bonnie and Brandon have been a tremendous help this year at doing all the footwork with the department heads and getting their wishes incorporated into a draft budget. They've been hard at work for 3 months on that. I've been hard at work for 3 weeks on this. So they've done quite a bit of work before really handing it to me. Generally, we would start each year, with the general fund, and we look at the property valuation. So in February, the mayor and I met with the county appraiser, and we learned that DeSoto's property valuation is 10.2% higher than it was in 2020. And that's stacked on top of similar assessed, value increases dating back really to 2017. This table kind of shows that, and this chart shows that too. Total property valuation now at almost $119 million for the city. Last year was about $108 million. So that relates directly to mill levy and how much revenue that we assess. Some of these elements are still estimates at this time. We get personal property valuations or the utility valuation until later in the budget cycle. So we've estimated those for now. So the number we're using for total valuation is just under. Sales tax is another big part of the budget. About a third of the general fund is taxes. This has been a topic of discussion in past budget cycles because of the impressive increases year on year and quarter on quarter. Seeing those increases have moderated just a bit from the double-digit increases that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. So far in 2023, the first quarter of 2023 exceeded the first quarter of 2023. Still very healthy growth, but more in line with an inflationary type growth than it has been in the past. Still, we're taking a pretty conservative approach to the sales and use tax projections. You see this, the main line here to look at is this top line. Essentially everything before 2023 is actual revenues. So you see this line increasing impressively through 21, 22. 22 reached its peak at just below $2.5 million. We are projecting conservatively the budget, and conservatively we're projecting for the end of 2023 for that to dip, and then what's in the 2024 budget, it gets you almost back up to the level that we saw last. Still believe that's very conservative. We're still looking at probably a good 10% below what we actually think the revenues. And from that point, we're following a trend line that's pretty relatively conservative as well. Stop me anytime you're so interested in all this.
So what's the dip?
So the dip is explained by, so everything from 2022 and before are actual sales tax collections.
Yeah.
2023, we budget very conservatively.
Yeah.
So we budget much lower, and I'm not projecting any higher. So that's a projection. We're still projecting that low.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be up. It's probably going to be at least equal to 2023. First
Right.
quarter is 6% higher. We probably should be up above
okay.
2.5, but that's the reason for the dip. It's between actual collections and conservative.
You're just trying to go back to your projection line.
Well, yeah, the projection line is defined by that, but it really is a function of being conservative with the revenues. It's that transition from what we actually collected before to our practice of being conservative forward. That's kind of the dip there. So what's next? So the debt service. So similarly, this is revenues into the general fund. That chart. Four. The chart on page 5 is the sales tax that goes straight to the debt service fund. So it's a similar. It looks more exaggerated, but it's a similar dip, similar conservative projections moving forward. Franchise fee revenues are probably the biggest part on the revenue side that I need to go over with you tonight. Again, historically, we've been very conservative in estimating franchise revenues. The budget you'll see for 2024 and the 5-year projections are less conservative. We do have estimates from Evergy that have been reconfirmed several times, and as Panasonic ramps up and gets closer to operation in 2025, we continue to get those franchise estimates, the franchise fee revenues just from that facility. Evergy has estimated that the city's revenues from the construction activities alone will be roughly $125,000 annually just to build the thing in 2023 and 2024. And 2025, those ramp up considerably. So what I've done for the remainder of 2023 is I've added $50,000 to our projection. And then for 2024, I've increased those further by $75,000. So the franchise revenues that you'll see projections look like this, and that looks like a very aggressive slope there, and it is. But when we consider the ultimate future potential franchise revenues just from the Panasonic building, we're still several times below what the actual projections are, even if we go all the way out. So by 2025, the revenue projections, I can't read my chart here. So you can see we don't reach $2 million before 2029. So that's still very conservative. Franchise revenues, well, when you consider before this year, we probably would have projected somewhere, around $1 million. So, still pretty conservative estimates there. So when we look at property tax revenues and mill levies for the general fund alone, the draft 2024 budget you have in front of you shows a decrease in mills from 13.3 this year to 13.1. That's largely because of the assessed valuation increase. So this chart here on the following page shows what the general fund year-end balance is projected to do moving forward. And this chart also looks a little strange because we have this projected 2023 balance extremely high. The primary reason for this is because we expect two things to occur this year that are incorporated here. The first is Panasonic's building permit fee, and that's close to $1 million. And then the second is Panasonic's reimbursement for our third-party inspection fees for our third-party inspector for building inspections out there. That's close to $1.8 million over the 2.5 years. So we're expecting another $900,000 in revenue for that. It'll be passed through. It'll come in. It'll go out. But that's the revenue. It won't go out all this year. So that's a big spike. So when you can take this big spike out, you see a more familiar curve where we have year-end fund balances that are high, balances when you compare them to our expenditures on a percentage basis, well above our 30% policy, a fund balance policy. But if you take this out and smooth between those two, the fund balance is decreasing in out years and moderating toward a 30%, which is in our policy that we want to target. The debt service fund is the same, kind of the same picture, decreasing the mill levy slightly. The debt service, there's no reason to keep a fund balance in here, so we're showing pretty high fund balances in 23, 24. Those will moderate toward, toward some nominal level by the end of the projection period. The mills will also moderate from their current level down to about 2.0 mills. The law enforcement fund is a little different story. Why are you leaving? We're just getting to you. Oh, it's front row.
Front row, wow. Student, huh?
The law enforcement fund, we were notified by the sheriff last fall that our services contract would increase by about because of some of the actions they had to take to recruit and maintain good officers. There's really a shortage of labor force there, and as a result, the Board of County approved some pretty substantial increase to personnel costs for the law enforcement, for the sheriff, and they're reflecting that in their service contracts to us. This is something we knew last year, but that appropriation will increase by just below $600,000 currently to about $735,000. So that's about a 22% increase, resulting the mills will have to increase by about half a mil. So we're going to from 4.9 up to, and this is this little tick up here, 4.9 up to 5.4 mils to fund the law enforcement. So when you look at the overall mill levy picture, yes, we're going to have revenues that we didn't have before. The franchise fees will be increased. Also include, and I'll get to some personnel increases and some service increases that we're going to need to do to account to manage the growth that's in front of us, and we have the sheriff's contract to account for. So what all that means boils down to is essentially the budget you have in front of you holds the mill levy steady at 2.8 between the general law, debt, service, all of our DeSoto's mill levy, 2.8, and that'll kind of break a trend, that started in 2008, decreasing that mill levy throughout the years. But if you look at future projections, there's opportunities for further decreases, and this doesn't really get at the transformative impact, positive impact to the budget that Panasonic will have, largely in terms of franchise revenues, but also sales tax and other activity, general activity within the other revenues to touch on just quickly. Relatively, comparatively small part of the budget picture, court fines, planning and zoning fees, permitting, rents, things like that. So I've provided a little chart there. There's a great big spike in these this year, largely because of excise tax from Panasonic and some other application fees. That is it. How have I been talking for 15 minutes now?
Nonstop.
At least.
45.
I'll make the rest of it quick. Incorporating but the personnel thing's the biggest thing. Incorporated in the 24 budget are 4 new positions. We had requests for 6. We're able to incorporate 4 new positions or increase positions. One of the additional building inspector, we've already talked about, and we're recruiting for that position this year. Onboarded this year. The second is for our city attorney to go full-time potentially next year. So we wanted to get that in the budget, have that discussion with our city attorney. Think that his talents could be used very effectively here and would never be a slow moment for him if he were here throughout the week. So that is incorporated. I'm happy and I'm excited about having that resource available. Also included is a communications and event assistant for Whitney. We do see, well, when we heard tonight, just the increasing volume of the need for public communications, community outreach, but also community events with additional resources in the future. Whitney makes a pretty good case for the need for an assistant in her position. And then lastly, we would like to onboard a utility clerk / deputy city clerk. So take some of the load off Brandon. I think eventually we do need a full-time city clerk. That's not really contemplated here, but we know we're going to have additional needs just for a utility frontline counter type of position there, and also to help Brandon out with some of his more administrative work there. Included in the projections, not for 24, but for 25, is an additional building maintenance foreman around City Hall and other city-owned buildings. We have one now, Nate, who's kind of a jack of all trades, does a great job, but he's just overwhelmed with stuff to do. And then lastly would be a planner, assistant, GIS specialist, planning applications that we see that we expect to increase in the future. The rest of these items, vehicle equipment replacement, we haven't really formulated precisely. We've got some budget placeholders in there. Haven't exactly decided what to budget for that next year. Still working on that. Structurally, you might notice in the budget, we're going to break Whitney's elements out from right now she's under the admin department. We're just going to make her own department because her funding is tied into the 4th of July event and other community events, and it would be easier from a budget and administrative standpoint to break that out. So there's a new department, but essentially it's kind of the same money, kind of the same resource. Road maintenance program, again, in the street department budget, maintaining $550,000 in that fund. Again, contingency revenues and expenditures like we did last year. We have placeholder line items for contingency revenues and expenditures going out, so we can make those decisions throughout the year. And then again, capital improvements, we more on that later, I guess. And the water fund, I think in the budget, and I'll just kind of come down here to the 5-year projections, quite a reduction between 21 and 22 year-end balances. We did implement a water rate increase this year to account for that. I'm suggesting the budget does include increases next year and the year after. 4% increase next year, 3% increase in 2025 are in the budget numbers. Also, we do expect an increase this year and next year, substantial increases in the water because of concrete batch plants opening up out at the Panasonic site. I know we've talked about that before, that they were going to use raw water for those. They indicated that, remember, we were going to have to run the wells at night and they'd fill up. So that's just kind of an untenable thing for them. They're going to buy treated water for those. And so we'll have a lot more water revenues. And some of the expenditures have been increased accordingly, chemicals and manpower and electric utility costs will have to be increased as well. So that's the overall picture on the water fund. Sewer fund, just quickly, it's in a more kind of a stable position. No big surprises there. There are inflationary increases in the revenue rates or commodity charges, 4% next year. Expenditures are relatively constant. For the water fund and the sewer fund, 2024, we're going to be building these new expansion plants, or the plant expansions. During that process, we need to do quite a bit of analysis on what it's going to cost to operate those and how much gallon to make water and water. And so we'll kind of have a refreshed picture because the new facilities won't operate the same as the old ones. The needs will be different. Hopefully the utilities, you know, per gallon will be lower because they'll be more efficient. There's a lot of things that'll change in those two in the next couple of years, but we're not expecting them to really hit the budget next year because they won't be ready. That's it. I'm sorry I took 25 minutes doing that. Happy to have any discussions, answer any questions.
All right. Anybody got questions?
I had some, but I forgot.
I'm sorry.
The one that sticks out to me is, you know, the $550,000 street maintenance fund that just perpetuates. Do we really know? I think I've asked the question before, and you've said before, we're not keeping up.
We're not.
And so,
yeah,
hopefully you're taking a look at where we really need to be. We're also going to be getting more new roads.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the work
Not that they're going to need maintenance initially, but
well, right.
but our needs to maintain and crack seal and do that kind of stuff will go up. But just in our general streets, I feel like we're getting behind.
Yeah. Well, you know, Chet indicated that we're doing, you know, pavement maintenance conditions survey now. Is that's nearing completion, right? Or
Yeah, that's complete, and next meeting, we'll be presenting a packet for council's consideration and blessing to put out to bid the road maintenance program for 2023. So we've got some stuff that we didn't get to last year, and then we've got that pavement condition index for everything in town, so we'll be using that as a bit more proactive in our maintenance.
Is that an annual thing? Then you go out every year and update that?
We do it about every 3 years.
Every 3 years?
yeah. So along with that will come kind of a comprehensive system replacement, you know, asset management program, if you will. And we're trying to implement the same. You're running out of time, but we need to stand up a similar thing for the water distribution sewer. But point taken, you know, you're right. It's not. I don't feel like it's keeping up. I feel the same way. So that's a closer look we'll have to take.
Good work though, because it's a wild ride right now. I mean, trying to figure out what you project and how to project, how to plan. It's a crazy time.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of help. I'm gonna need a lot more help.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Any other?
More to come. Thank you.
All right. I think that's through the list of our regular items, right?
Yep.
So,
Do have an executive session.
all right, I would entertain a motion for executive session.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We recess into executive session at 9:12 for 5 minutes to discuss acquisition of right-of-way pursuant to land acquisition KSA 75. Resuming in the city council chamber at 9:17.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Mayor, I'll abstain from executive session.
All right.
And for the audience, the video will remain going. Mics will remain on.
Dead. Oh, are you? Yeah, I can't hear.
You have a nice shirt.
You did.
We match.
Right.
Totally take that as a compliment.
That was a long meeting, yeah.
I'll return that in case somebody else wants to run.
We sent an email to Bonnie, put it on the website so we don't have to think about it anymore. But we have a digital copy already saved on the World Drive, so
Yeah.
we'll keep one for the record. Figured you would just go in and click. Logins, yeah. No changes. Yeah, I'm the administrator of it. Really. All these things. All the same. I think if you know you did it, you have to hear. Click the wrong thing and it kicks you out. Wait for them to get to it. Can we have
I still think we need.
Oh, come on.
Sorry
No, you're okay.
about that.
What we really need is a AV technician. Runs the camera, points, zooms.
Well, there we go. It's 9:17. We're back in regular session. Rob?
I'll make a motion, we authorize the city administrator to move forward with land acquisition not to exceed $67,000 for right-of-way.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Abstain.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yeah, yes.
motion carries.
All right. Advisory report, city administrator.
Nothing
You
more this
done?
evening, council?
Good.
Thank you.
City attorney.
Nothing for me.
All right. City planner, Brad, you still here?
I'm sitting there, 3 items on the planning commission next Tuesday. Having fun with that.
Just as a point of question, do you send that out to all the council or?
I actually just copied you on
Okay. Would other council members like to receive the planning commission agenda packet?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can always send it out.
Would you mind including the entire council on those? Thank you. City engineer, oh, Chet's gone.
Where's Chet?
You might be in the bathroom.
We'll circle back.
Oh, okay.
Assistant City Administrator.
Nothing
Brandon.
today, Mayor.
All right. That was Chet's last chance. All right, council comments. Danny, what do you got for us? All right. Kevin?
I'm good for now.
Rob?
I'm good for tonight.
Lori?
I have nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Kevin?
No, sir.
I don't have anything.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned.
Very good. Good work tonight. That was a lot.
That was a lot.
Let me stop the recording. Let me stop the YouTubes.
This conference is